How we doing, everybody? Welcome back. I hope everything's been going good for y'all lately out there. Halloween season's coming up, or it is Halloween season, I guess. One of my favorite holidays, so I got a little bit of stuff thrown out there. So let's jump right into it. So couple weeks ago, last week, my professor hinted at the Tea Party. Didn't really hint, more kind of blatantly said the Tea Party was born out of racial grounds. And his reasoning behind this was because that basically the Tea Party supported stronger stronger immigration control, obviously to stop illegal immigrants from coming in so easily. And so basically what he thought was, well, why would the Tea Party, his justification for this, which just made no sense at all, was, well, the Boston Tea Party is born out of Massachusetts. I don't understand why these people would really care for immigration laws that much. You know, as if immigration laws don't affect the whole country or anything like that. Really just a stupid point to make. So let me just jot off some points I wrote down, then we're going to go through them real quick. So my first point was Tea Party started in 2009, of course. Tea Party was for smaller government, lower taxes, and stronger immigration controls that we went through. Perhaps he thinks it's racist due to false claims of basically members of the Tea Party calling Rep. John Lewis and some other black representatives the N-word. And what's funny is Breitbart actually came to disprove that. Breitbart, the man, not the media source. Sanctuary cities and crime rates. So put that down. We'll go over that for a second. And then welfare use of illegal immigrants that had a household is 62% compared to the 30% of those using some sort of welfare program that are headed by native-born citizens. So let's run through all of that real quick. So first off, that perhaps he thought the Tea Party was racist, or perhaps, or at least one point you hear why the Tea Party is racist is because, and we've heard this before, that basically at one of the events, there were Democratic representatives, one of them being John Lewis. They were walking away or walking out. I don't quite remember the exact event, so I apologize for that. And he reportedly said, and the other black representative said that they were being called the N-word by these Tea Partiers and by the people who support the Tea Party. Andrew Breitbart, the man before he passed away, actually challenged this and offered his own money. I believe it was $100,000, though I'd have to look that up again. But offered his own money for the actual video footage, for the actual hard evidential proof that this happened. And of course it never came out. Of course it went away because it just didn't happen. It just plain wasn't true. And if anyone remembers Andrew Breitbart, he liked to basically walk towards the fire and say, hey, look, if you're going to say crap like this, then you better be able to defend it. And they weren't able to defend it. It's because it was wrong. There were a lot of fallacious claims about the Tea Party when they were more prominent, about how they just left places dirty and everything else, which is funny because Antifa and Black Lives Matter and other Democratic groups, like the Women's March, all they do whenever they march, all they do is just leave trash everywhere. So I think that's kind of funny. Oh, or they just break the law and break in everywhere but the welfare and government offices, which is kind of funny. So that might be a reason. Moving on to my next point, that sanctuary cities and crime rates. So there was a study out by a few professors out of the colleges are escaping right now, but I was out of 3 collegial institutions. And so basically they came up with the lie that, oh, well, see, sanctuary cities and cities without sanctuary policies basically have the same crime rates. There's no statistical significance between the two when it comes to violent crime rates or just crime rates in general. As I always say, this is absolute crap, and here is why. And excuse me, the studies that the colleges that the study came out from was at the University of California, Riverside, and Highland College, and Des Moines, and Washington. So their study, basically what they do, and I'm getting this off of WND.com. They say they're an independent source. I don't know about any much of a bias. The person writing this is against sanctuary cities. So maybe there's something thrown into that. However, I'll post it and you guys can basically come to your own conclusions on it. But what I'm finding in this, and what I found in my other research as well here, is that A, crime is higher in sanctuary cities, and B, what is mentioned here is that basically after 9/11, when sanctuary cities or sanctuary city policies, were put into effect, these colleges basically they took the crime averages right after the sanctuary city policies were put into effect, which means like there wasn't enough time to really compare the spike in crime or how much crime would proliferate after such policies were implemented. So that's just one way that they manipulated the data. But just as much, they actually used a chart which shows that after the sanctuary city policies were implemented, crime rates spiked up, and in some places it doubled actually. I don't understand how they can they came with the conclusion that was any different than the charts they posted. So basically they posted charts that disproved the point, but then they said, well, look, this proves our point. A, because they manipulated data, and B, because they want to come to they probably came to the conclusion of, no matter what we see, we're going to end up saying that sanctuary city policies don't have an effect on higher crime rates. So that is another. So if you ever hear the left trying to tout that out, or your professors trying to show how there's no difference in it, what people don't understand too is when you have an illegal immigrant, maybe they're not going to murder, maybe they're not going, and most of the legal immigrants aren't murderers or thieves or thieves in the traditional sense or something like that. I'm sure most of them are decent people, but the fact is that when you come in the first time, that is a crime. When you come in the second, now that is felonious. And then also when you stay here, and then when you live off our government programs, a lot of the times, which was I'll quote that in a second, and when you drive a car, when you do all these things that normal citizens do, that native citizens do, that are lawful for them but not for illegal immigrants, you are actively breaking the law. Not only that, but you are having an effect on the economy as well. So and that's a whole nother thing to get into, which is going to be way too long for this, the economic aspect of it. But basically, the conservatives aren't trying to paint them all as murderers, rapists, or anything like that. Donald Trump was stupid when he said his comments the way he said them on his campaign trail. But what we're saying is they are actually criminals. They are committing crime. They are actually continually breaking the law, and it has effects, and they're negative effects. And the ones that, yes, do commit crimes, ones that get deported several times, they come back and do commit those violent crimes, the ones that really catch the headlines, they shouldn't be here as well. They shouldn't. You shouldn't defend illegal immigration and illegal immigrants because it's, oh, well, most of them don't commit crimes. That doesn't matter. That's an ad hominem. Don't ever buy that argument. Because that's straw man. It doesn't matter. It absolutely doesn't matter. So yeah, basically their report was crap, and not only that, but if they were to do that same study now, well, what it's showing is that the violent crime was rising. Not only had it risen from even when they had implemented it, but it was continually rising, which means it's gotten worse since then. So let's continue. The last point I put on here, at least, was welfare. The welfare point. Okay, so according to the Center for Immigration Studies, according to this, I have here quote: illegal immigrant-headed households' use of welfare is high at 62%. Okay, 62% for a household that is headed by an illegal immigrant. Higher than the 30% for households headed by native-born Americans. Now, I obviously think that 30% for native-born Americans is too much as well, but that's just the conclusion of the study, or one of the conclusions of the study. It says in this conclusion, among households headed by an illegal immigrant, we estimate that 60% use one or more welfare programs. While the overall rate is very high, however, households headed by immigrants illegally in the country primarily use food programs and Medicaid, and their use rates of cash and housing programs are lower than Natives' household use rates. So basically, they use Medicaid and food programs more, which I think is atrocious. Because one thing before I leave y'all that I think is wrong with the welfare system is we don't grade the welfare system off of how people use it to get out of the situation and better themselves. We use it as, well, how many people is it supporting on the day to day and the check to check and the living paycheck to paycheck and all these things. It shouldn't be based off of how many people depend on it. It should be based off of how many people used it, were able to better themselves through individual responsibility and want and will, and moved on from it. That was the whole point of the 5-year mark, which has been way watered down, by the way. And a lot of the harsh regulations against attaining welfare, a lot of times aren't even charged, which liberals never seem to mention. They never seem to mention the watered down of the 5 years. So it's just all absolute crap. So getting back to my main point. The Tea Party isn't racist. And for my teacher to claim that it was founded off of racial means, but it's founded by racists, for my teacher to claim how somehow you can't be pro stronger immigration controls and be not a racist is such crap. Because as much as people want to claim that we're a nation of immigrants, we're also a nation of laws. And a nation of ideals, and a nation of principles, and a nation with a constitution that tells our representatives and our officials that they need to protect us first. And so, because people want to abide by that, no matter what skin color they are, it doesn't make them a racist. It's just another way to paint conservatives as evil, which is what the left always does. And what's sad is that now people like my professors grew up in this environment where they actually just believe it to be true. It's gone from objective truth to just subjective bias. It's subjective truth to them is what it really is. Because it's not backed by anything significant. It's not backed by any sort of truth. It's not even backed by common sense. Anyways, folks, thank you so much. I'm glad that I'm getting back into these a little more. And I'm going to hopefully make one more before Halloween or maybe even on Halloween. And I'll be in my own little costume. So thank you folks so much. Have a good rest of your night. My name is Wyatt and I'm the College Conservative.